Hey friends, are you familiar with the most trusted business network for business executives? It's the C-Suite Network. If you're a business of $5 million or greater, and if you're a VP level or higher, then you're invited to join the C-Suite Network to connect with your business peers. Go to csuitenetwork.com, that's a C-suitenetwork.com, to learn more about the benefits, meetings, and services exclusive for C-Suite executives like you. Okay, let's do the show. It's time to accelerate. Hi, this is Andy. Welcome to episode 465 of Accelerate, where I hold in-depth conversations with today's leading experts in sales, marketing, and leadership 6 days a week. On the 7th day, we do our Espresso Roundup show. Make sure you check that out. So, there are thousands of you that listen to Accelerate every day, and we really appreciate your loyalty and your support. And we'd love it even more if you subscribe to Accelerate. You can do that right from your phone, on the podcast app on your phone, and also if you left a quick review for Accelerate. Again, you can do that from the podcast app on your phone or on your computer. So really appreciate your support. Thanks again. Now, one of the hardest things a sales leader can do is hire salespeople. And getting it right is so important because getting it wrong can be hugely distracting and costly in terms of lost time and opportunities. So to help you get it right, I've created a guide to hiring the right sales candidates for your company. It's called How to Hire a Winning Sales Team. The Sales Leader's 5-step guide to better sales hiring, and it's free, available for you. Just go to accelerate.fm/winning to download your free guide today. Again, that's accelerate.fm/winning to get your free copy of How to Hire a Winning Sales Team. Joining me on the show today is William Wickey. He's the Senior Manager of Content and Media Strategy at LeadGenius, and one of the authors of an ebook titled 2017 Trends and Tech Guide for B2B Sales and Marketing, which is going to be the subject of our conversation today. William, welcome to Accelerate.
Thank you for having me on, Andy. It's a pleasure to chat with you.
Oh, my pleasure. Pleasure's all mine. So this ebook was a collaborative effort between multiple companies.
That is correct. We co-wrote this book over here at LeadGenius with Ambition and also Prezi Business.
All right. So 2 Bay Area firms and 1 Tennessee firm.
That's right.
All right. So what was the impetus to get together and write it and publish it?
So this is actually the second ebook I have written with Jeremy.
Jeremy from Ambition, right?
That's correct. Jeremy Boudinot. The first ebook we wrote last year was also a collaborative effort with Ambition and Persist IQ about marketing and sales alignment. Folks can go back and find that at accountbasedebook.com. But it was how to use an account-based strategy in companies that use the SDR model. Mm-hmm. And it worked out really well. People were engaged with the content. We do a lead share with this type of stuff. So it was mutually beneficial for all the companies involved. And a trends and technology guide is not anything new for LeadGenius. We've done this in the past, and Ambition has as well, and some incarnation or another Prezi has additionally. And we just got into conversations with them about how we could, combine our resources and put something together that isn't admittedly the most brand new concept in the world. People have read trends and technology guides before for sales and marketing, but we wanted to do it really, really well.
Well, you have sort of a unique structure to the book, and I've read it, and it's well worth people downloading it and reading it because you're going to learn a bunch of new things about companies that can help you in specific ways. But you sort of organized it by, I'll say, problem area, and then described what that was. Then you, I'll say, curated, let's say, a broad range of solutions for each of those problem areas. So how did you decide who got included? Whose tech solution got included in the book?
Sure. Yeah, that's right. And people can go check it out at b2btrendsandtech.com. The structure of the ebooks, I'll start there and then discuss how we got into the technologies we picked. There have been a lot of trends guides out there. Usually they're high level. They come out at the beginning of the year and it tells you what's happening. Here's a few things you should look out for. If this was 2016, some of the stuff that was big on the radar, it's account-based marketing is brand new. And here's the possibility of predictive analytics. But typically those just pure trends guides don't get into what's actually happening at the company level. Why are these big trends relevant and connected to actual business problems that marketing and sales organizations have? And then you also have technology guides where there's simply a list of companies. There's some really good comprehensive ones out there with a description, but it's tough to parse out what marketing and sales solutions do well because there's so many multifunctional products out there where, even multiple departments will end up using something. So the way we organized this was started with a big picture idea of 6 or 7 trends that are happening in the marketplace today that both B2B sales and marketing leaders and really anyone in a B2B company should be aware of. Then map those to some of the needs that you might see on the organizational level. Some of the things that perhaps your boss is asking of you as a sales leader, the CEO is asking of you. And then if you see those needs happening at your company, we give suggestions for some of the technologies you should go out there and check out. The methodology for putting this together is a little bit subjective, but what we wanted to do is highlight some of the people who might not yet be on your radar, some of the more point solutions and some of the up and coming companies that maybe you haven't demoed. And really, if there's one thing that someone who reads this book can walk away from, other than just confirmation and high level idea of, the trends they see in the market or things that other people are seeing as well, is kind of a go-to list for folks that are platforms you should evaluate or be demoing. There's so much out there. This isn't intended to be the most comprehensive technology guide. It's how you should prioritize some of the up-and-coming companies and where you should spend your time demoing, evaluating, and doing trials with, et cetera.
So I think a valid question, as a result of reading the book, and not a criticism, but a observation, is that it seems more oriented towards perhaps tech companies than the broader B2B sales market.
Well, that's definitely true. I mean, for both Prezi, LeadGenius, and Ambition, there's no doubt that we have traction within the tech vertical, especially being out here in the Bay Area. But at LeadGenius, and for people who aren't familiar with what LeadGenius does, we're a platform for lead generation and go-to-market insights. We work with people in both the marketing and sales side of B2B companies and help them figure out how to scale up their strategy, particularly in an outbound context, get the contacts that they need to fuel outbound programs, and then give them analytics and insights on top of that to figure out the fastest way to get to market in specific verticals. So we work with people outside of tech as well. Tech's maybe about 20% of our customer base. And we see the same challenges in marketing and sales organizations in companies like construction and manufacturing and things well outside that specific tech vertical. So if there is anything I would let the listeners know about this ebook, is that it's not specific towards technology necessarily.
Okay.
We see trends for both sales and marketing happening. We see the same things happening in a lot of different industries, a lot of different verticals.
Well, that was one of the questions I was going to ask. So one of the, let's jump into some of the trends. So one of the trends was the segmented sales force, which, to me is really about specialization, right? Is that roles are becoming more specialized within sales organizations. Certainly we do see this in the tech business, certainly driven by the SaaS model with your SDRs and your AEs and, CSMs and so on. But, less so sort of with companies outside. I mean, we're seeing a trend toward inside sales, but in many companies, that's sort of the degree of specialization. You got inside sales, you got your outside guys. So what are you seeing in general, with your non-tech companies, 80% of the clients that aren't in tech? What degree of specialization are you starting to see in those non-tech companies?
So one thing that we're seeing in a lot of these sales orgs is the rise of the sales development rep function. Like you said, there's inside and outside folks. And for the inside sales orgs, people are bringing in this SDR type role that is used in an outbound context to get to market faster. And the reason that role is rising a little bit in importance or in prevalence is because we are seeing a drive for both marketing and sales teams to align their efforts. And in many ways, this SDR function is that fulcrum that is the alignment point for both of those departments. What we actually see in a lot of B2B companies is the marketing team driving the messaging and sometimes the actual activities of a sales development rep, and then some of the output and some of the KPIs being aligned more on the sales side. So rise of the SDR function specifically is one of those things driving this segmented sales force.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that certainly makes sense. I mean, part of the comment was based upon the fact that, when you look sort of outside the tech bubble and maybe outside some, larger enterprises, that, the world of sales is still, unfortunately, largely unchanged for the last 20 years or more. I mean, I give this example on the show before, but, a client working with 80 plus inside sales people, no tools at all, right? No email tracking, even the basics, right? That you'd think everybody would have these days. So, it seems like most of this world out there is people just still untouched by all the incredible technological changes that are taking place within sales and marketing.
That's definitely true. So that's one of the reasons we put this book together, is for people who are in organizations like that, where things have been done for the same way for maybe a decade, 2 decades. They have those 80 inside sales reps, and consistency is something that company values, and they want to, hit quota, make the numbers, and, occasionally have growth goals in mind. They're hearing about things that are happening in other areas. Sometimes they're looking to, the coast or the Bay Area to see what kind of technology is out there. And some of it's hype, some of it's not. So we wanted to give them a good starting place for actually evaluating some of those tools that they might want to incorporate into their organization. Because I think our contention would be that those orgs are not necessarily going to do things the same way forever or indefinitely. What they're doing right now might be working, but they're probably going to incorporate different processes and technologies. They're going to help them grow and become more efficient, et cetera. I would also say that we're seeing some of the companies that we work with in some of these industries you think of as fairly old, and they do things in a fairly static way, being driven to change and to move from a consistency mindset to a growth mindset because of what's happening in the market. I'll give you an example in manufacturing and construction. Those are not necessarily the most cutting edge industries out there when it comes to how marketing and sales operations are conducted. But what's happened with just technology and the world getting smaller is that 10, 15, 20 years ago, manufacturing and construction companies basically had their book, and they worked it well. And that was the responsibility of account executives or salespeople, enterprise salespeople at those organizations. And now because of shipping and because people across the world can be your competitor now, those companies now have a different mindset. They want to know how to grow. They want to know how they can get to people who they formerly weren't necessarily considering in their markets or geographies. So figuring out how to target new people, figuring out how to break into new areas geographically or new industries is something on the mind of a lot of sales leaders. A lot of sales leaders are being asked, given increased goals, they're being asked to squeeze more juice out of that same old orange without changing the economics of their business, which is a tough thing to do. How do you get more without more budget, more people, et cetera? You need to get creative, and in some cases, adopting technology to help you get there. There's so much out there, so it's a difficult thing to figure out where to start and evaluating some of this stuff. That's what we're hoping to do with B2B this 2017 ebook.
Okay, so for this whole topic of sales specialization, you've got a number of solutions. So can you talk about a couple of the solutions that companies could look at? Maybe somebody's, as you said, starting to build up an SDR function inside their company.
Sure.
What are they going to need? I mean, I know you don't want to go through the whole stack, but sort of in this topic area that you have in the book.
Sure. Some of the things that people should consider are, I would say, the first two things when it's regarding the SDR function and growing that and adding scale to the sales process. Outbound email solutions that allow for heavy personalization and easy tracking is something that I would consider. This would include companies out there like Outreach.io, Yesware, PersistIQ, simple email tools that people usually fall on one side or the other of. They've either over familiar with that type of area and they think, well, why can't I just do everything from Gmail? Why can't I do everything from my marketing email? And I come from the marketing side of things. So I have marketers say to me all the time, like, well, why can't I just do outbound email with HubSpot or Marketo or a MailChimp, et cetera? And then on the sales side, it's like, well, why can't I just send emails from Gmail? Why can't all my reps just, maintain their own communications there and log activity in Salesforce? The tools that we highlight in this area are things that you can use to coordinate messaging at scale and make sure that insights from particular reps are not getting lost in the shuffle of data. You're actually able to iterate on what's working, learn, and start from a consistent process. So what that looks like actually in practice is a single template used for your 15 or 50 reps. Work that 8 email sequence, set up, timed or trigger-based email sequences that are intended to, gauge a prospect's interest, get a positive reply, convert them into a qualified lead, and do all that automatically, just putting the positive replies or the replies in the hands of the rep, making their time more efficient rather than that tit for tat back and forth all day on email. That can be a big time saver for those guys. The other thing that I would suggest for sales teams considering an approach like that is your data strategy. How are you acquiring and maintaining quality contact and account data? How are you getting data points that allow for personalization at scale? One thing that you hear a lot about personalization, and I guess I should qualify that personalization in an outbound email function isn't just purely about merge fields in an email. It is about that. You can go look at.
Well, as the recipient of many of them, it seems like for 99% of the companies, that's exactly what they're doing.
They're definitely doing that. You can go look up, all sorts of different blog posts about personalization in your subject line, increasing open rates, et cetera. And that's true to a certain degree. But the real personalization element that quality data and having the right data allows you to do is segmenting those email sends into targeted blasts that are, a template that actually has compelling messaging structured around a specific type of individual within your system. That's an example of, the type of personalization you can get with some of the data providers out there today. LeadGenius does this to a certain degree. Providing high quality data is definitely something that we do. But depending on your process, there might be better solutions out there for you that are just pure data plays. Depends on whether scale is most important to you and unique data points offer insights into your customers specifically. For some people, it doesn't. And making sure that you have a technology in place to actually get the most out of that.
So one of the points that you guys bring out in your text, and this is sort of a data point that I always find very, very interesting, and I ask lots of people about it, but is that you quote some studies saying that only 33% of inside sales rep time is spent actively selling. So we have this move toward more and more inside sales. Yet we have industries saying that percent of reps hitting quota and sort of general performance stats aren't real positive for the sales industry, at least in the B2B side. So what's the secret in terms of some of the solutions you're talking about to be able to help the reps spend more of their time actively selling? I mean, you talked a little bit about the email outbound, but is there even studies you guys came across when you're writing the ebook saying that here's sort of a realistic number in terms of percentage of time, because it's not going to be 100%. What would be that number?
It depends on the sales function, I would say. So you obviously want your personnel's time spent on some of the highest value activities that they possibly can. So this goes back to that idea of the segmented sales force and division of labor. Not every person on your team needs to be out there just selling, or out there, on closing calls or disco calls, et cetera. if that's not what their function is, at some of these roles where there is an SDR function in place, all they need to do is set up calls, or they need to set up demos or give quick demos. And what your goal is to get that person doing more of those things. So a full percentage of, that an individual's time selling, I think it would be tough to estimate. But what I would encourage every sales leader to do is go do an audit of your rep's time, do an audit of their prospecting process. How many steps are involved? Are they going to LinkedIn and then, looking at the company, then going to LinkedIn Navigator and pulling down certain data, entering it into Salesforce, then hopping on, that person's Twitter account to see if they put anything out there recently so they can have a jumping off point for a conversation. And if that's what the process looks like, there are certainly technologies out there that can save that rep, 5 minutes per call times 200 times a day. If that process of just looking at LinkedIn and getting the URL and that information is bogging them down. So that would be an example of how you can get that SDRs whose job it is to go out there, prospect, and then give demos, more time to focus on the higher value activity of giving demos by putting the quality information that they need in their hands right off the bat and making sure that it's accurate and they can trust it and they can just, execute.
Well, one of the conundrums that we're seeing is, we use the term, personalization at scale. And as we alluded to just a few minutes ago, it oftentimes is nothing more than, a mail merge first name field.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is the answer from your point of view for how we truly personalize without, people investing a tremendous amount of time doing it? I mean, I know people talk about, spend 3 minutes, find 3 data points, that advice, which is great advice, but, that's going to add up over the course of a day. What's really the answer to this? Or do we just sort of say, look, personalization is just sort of, true personalization, it's just sort of a nice to have, but, we're also winking at each other and saying, we're not really doing it.
Yeah, I think that there's 2 ways in that outbound context you can do personalization. It is the mail merge, like you mentioned, and then it's also the actual targeting. So making sure that the message of your email or whatever the communication is most relevant to this person's needs. So when it comes to a mail merge, if you're just saying, "Hi, Andy," and then you go into your spiel, that's not really personalization. Maybe that's a nice to have there. And in that case, I would agree. It's just nice maybe to say, "Hey, put a person's name in there. I was listening to one of your podcasts with Robert Cialdini, and he talks about trust and using people's names and influence, the psychology of persuasion, and how people love that type of familiarity." I would definitely encourage, by the way, all your listeners to go back and check out that interview because that's a good one. So yeah, there's a value there, but that's not real personalization, I think, and that's what you're alluding to. Yeah. But that same function actually can be used for real personalization, and that function, when I say that, I mean a mail merge. For example, some of our customers are solar companies, and the way a solar company might personalize an outbound email, a hardware provider, is that they want a list of all the people who are, in the Bay Area who own a home with X amount of roof space that is facing south. You need a south-facing roof space. No trees. You need that nice California sun, and you need someone to go out there and look on Google Earth to find that space. So in addition to that, that's one way you can do the targeting. On top of that, there's differing utility rates for different areas, depending on the city you're in, depending on the county. And having that available for a mail merge is quite valuable when you're trying to persuade someone who is might be potentially saving money with installing this solar technology in X amount of years. That is an actual personalized conversation that you're starting, even if it's something that is templated out. "Hi, Andy, I noticed that you own a commercial building in downtown Berkeley. It has 350 square feet of roof space. The utility rates in Alameda County are, 5 cents a watt, and in 3 months you're going to be able to, these are going to pay for themselves. So as a building manager or building owner, that's something you would be interested in. That's a personalized communication. So with the right data, you can actually use those, the old tried and true function of a mail merge to get a very personalized communication that someone might say, hey, I want to learn more about.
Now, I agree. I think great point. So question B is, and this is going to sound kind of trivial, but it's one I like to ask marketers. So why do we feel compelled to start all of our outbound emails with the salutation "hi"? Because it's the same thing. It's like there's a federal regulation, right? That your outbound emails from salespeople have to begin with the word "hi" so you can identify them as such. But the fact is, you can identify them as such, and I think. And as I said, I don't want to sound too trivial about it, but for me, when I see the "hi," it's like, okay, yeah, I don't need to read that one. Let's go to the next one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the answer is just maybe one part laziness, one part shiny toy. Like, this function is here, so let's do it. And there's, I've seen it in my inbox a million times, so that's how I think an email should be written. I think that's the mentality. So you bring up a good point. There's just a lot of homogeny when it comes to outbound emails. You get them all day, I get them all day. They look very similar. Oftentimes it's that same format, and you'll see these, if you're receiving outbound emails consistently, just the trends and how people sort of format these. It'll be the hi Andy, 1 sentence about my company, 3 bullet points, our value prop. Do you have 5 minutes to hop on a call? And there'll be, 20 of those in the inbox every morning when I come to work. So that is, I think just being lazy. And there's more creative ways that people can use data to actually add value into those. There's more creative ways that people can write these emails and make them interesting, just some good old fashioned selling. And there's other ways too with, people using personalized video and stuff and that. And, those are things I think worth keeping an eye on. But every salesperson out there can do, I think, can challenge themselves to write a more compelling email.
Yeah. Oh, and you mentioned video. I mean, I love the video emails, like Bomb. We're talking about particular services. I don't know if you've ever used it, but if you want a 100% open rate, that's a great tool to use. Yeah.
Vidcaster's another one out there.
Which one was that?
Vidcaster. And Vidyard. I've checked out a handful of these recently, and we use an SDR team over here at LeadGenius, and the coordination of our outbound efforts happens on the marketing side, even though the function lives in sales. And we've been exploring some of that personalized video, and the results have been pretty positive pretty positive so far. And we've been testing open rates, reply rates, positive reply rates. So those are definitely companies worth checking out, features worth checking out. Yeah,
very definitely. Gosh, I had a question. It just sort of slipped my mind. And, got too many interviews today.
I know how it goes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you made a good point about the mail merge with adding specific. Oh, I know what it was. Specific things is the just in emails, try to focus something that has something of value. You're talking about your solar example. It was sort of a simple financial calculation. It wasn't accurate, but it was, as you said, it was tuned based on the utilities that you rate and the area they're in and so on. And the house layout that they have, semi-flat roof with an exposure to the south, is that catches the eye.
Mm-hmm.
Just spend a little time thinking, and this is sort of my general thought in sales in general, is too much on automatic pilot. And, we have to think every time we're reaching out to somebody, because we're creating these perceptions and the impressions, whether we're aware of it or not.
Absolutely. I mean, just demonstrating relevance is a big step in the right direction. It's always surprising to me, some of the just sort of zombie autopilot approach that some of the sales emails I get regularly have to them. And it's there's so much noise out there that you really have to make that message compelling in order to stand out. You're very easily blend in with everyone else if just for that split second you look like just another person in the pack with something to sell that doesn't look like it's relevant to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And we could spend a whole nother episode just talking about that particular topic. I mean, I have to literally restrain myself every morning from replying to some of them because they're just so egregiously bad.
Yeah, there are some.
And this what demonstrates this, and this is, organizations that we all know the names of. It's like, oh, come on, do better. I mean, you're making us all look horrible. I mean, we're all in the sales business, and we have lots of people write books trying to talk about how do we overturn the stereotypical perception of salespeople, and we've migrated from the used car salesperson being the one that everybody talked about to now, unfortunately, it's starting to be our inside sales reps. Yeah,
it's definitely the case, and you've got in many circumstances, especially for that SDR role, just a pure volume play in the works. Many times, it's just a recent college grad who's out there just basically in the boiler room. The new boiler room is the sound of the keys typing instead of the phone ringing or people dialing out, and they're just trying to get stuff out the door. And many times, like it's just it's uninspired and it doesn't get a great response, and they're just looking for margins.
Well, but the issue is, and you talked about it right there, it's this continued emphasis on quantity over quality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't think that in the long term that's sustainable.
No, absolutely not. Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay. Well, William, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but I want to thank you for being on the show and tell folks how they can find out more about you and LeadGenius and connect with you.
For sure. Yeah, I very much appreciate the time and have enjoyed talking with you, Andy. People Likewise. Can find me on Twitter, Wickey, Wickey. LeadGenius is at LeadGenius.com. The ebook that we're talking about is at B2B trendsandtech.com. And earlier in the show, I mentioned our book about account-based marketing and sales alignment, specifically with the SDR function in mind. You can find that at accountbasedebook.com. So again, I appreciate the time, Andy. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah, well, thanks again, William, for joining us. So, and friends, thank you for spending this time with me today. Please come back and join me again tomorrow or next time if this is Saturday. So until then, if you have a chance, go to iTunes, subscribe to Accelerate, leave us a review. We really want to hear back from you, what we can do better to be a better service to you. And thanks again for joining me. Until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.